Travis Wayne Goodsell. I was born and raised Mormon, and still technically am. My current, my current location's former bishop, back in 2017, the end of 2017 into 2018, he was upset that I was posting on YouTube that the Book of Mormon was the official doctrine of the church regarding the fall of Adam. And if you know your scriptures about the fall of Adam and the Mormon church, you'll understand why he was upset and didn't want me coming to his church, his ward. But that was the final straw for me, where I decided, okay, fine. I've been bullied ever since I moved to Utah, so that's it. I'm studying church history. Now, I took biblical studies and philosophy of science as a dual major at a university in Canada. I'm not Canadian, Southern Californian. Married a Canadian at Rick's. And then she dumped me off in Utah. Duh. But anyway, and so I learned how to do real research. BYU don't teach you how to do real research. If you pay attention, scholars all quote acceptable scholars and then say other people have these views, but they don't discuss why they're wrong or even go into any detail, which if they were, they'd realize there is some validity to other people who are critics, such as John Gee's instructor, who, oh, there it is. Am I going to knock things over if I pull it down? Nope, that's not the one. That's Larson's book. Where is it? Anyway, it's somewhere. But there's a concept called peer review. It's all a sham to keep it in-house. If you know how to do research, you don't need others to tell you you're right or wrong, as long as you do it unbiased. The other peer review is just to verify your work, plain and simple, to make sure that there are no errors. And because I know that I need to continually check for errors, even in my own work, that's what I'm constantly doing. So you'll see, for example, I did a video series on this channel, Real LDS History, but then you'll notice others, Cooper Smith Shop, and then Harmony, PA. Those two other playlists were finding out extra information that I did not have in the previous one. So as you can see, I'm constantly checking and double checking myself to make sure I'm right. And my second ex thinks that because I'm now a blatant LDS critic, now that she's gone, not a closet LDS critic, she thinks she's to blame for it. And she thinks I'm now falling off onto the deep end and I'm following Lucifer and blah, blah, blah. And I just, had a conversation with her last night over the Book of Mormon. I try to get into her head, Book of Mormon's the official doctrine of the church, right? Well, yeah, I love the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon's great. Well, okay, so follow it. I am. No, do a checklist if you want to know which church is true. I love the church. I'm not leaving the church. The church is great. Follow the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon is the standard by which you shall judge. It gives you the standards. Well, yeah, there's that scripture. There are only two churches in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's not in the Book of Mormon. That title is not in the Book of Mormon. Well, and so it was a frustrating back and forth, and all I was trying to do was get her to, as she reads the Book of Mormon, to make a checklist. If she's wanting to know if the church is true, or any other church for that matter, use the checklist provided in the Book of Mormon. You have to make it because the Book of Mormon's in story form. And so when you come across the Great and Abominable Church, it's in a story form. You have to pull out the elements of the Great and Abominable Church, such as being filthy rich and neglecting the poor, polygamy, enslaving the membership. And how do they enslave the membership? Do they put them in chains and no. Agency Mormons, you know this, because you make the checklist of Moses chapter 4 verses 1 through 4, taking away agency, and then you include the techniques that Satan uses: flattery, pacification, deception, and incitement to anger. So emotional, playing with your emotions. Those are all emotion things, right? Flattery, pacification, deception. It's also a mental one there with deception, and then bringing someone to anger. That's emotion manipulation, and so those things are in the Book of Mormon for Mormons to know and understand that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the Great and Abominable Church. It's that simple. And yet Mormons are outraged. You know, just like my ex. And see, for me, I didn't catch on until recently, like I said, in the end of 2017, because I decided to study church history. And then everything else that I had been studying made sense. It fit in the context of church history, the real church history. And so I understood why the Book of Mormon was plagiarized, because of the coded messaging that I discovered. And you don't hear that from other critics, do you? No. They only say, it's plagiarized, the whole thing's fraud, it's fake, he tried to deceive mankind with the Book of Mormon. I'm currently suing the LDS Church. And as a result, I just got a death threat from the lawyers through their associates, and it was a clear message to me that if I do not withdraw my lawsuit, I will be threatened with my life. It was made very clear, and I've been putting the YouTube video out here talking about it, but this is what I'm having to deal with. I cannot live in Utah with the Mormon Church in existence. I just can't. They won't leave me alone. I have no choice but to stand up and say, no more, stop it. And so we've got some serious crimes that I've got, and they know it. And instead of going right to the court and saying, "Oh, this is a ridiculous lawsuit, Your Honor, for this, and this reasons," and or we're gonna pursue with the case because this is absurd. We are innocent. We can prove it, and blah blah blah. They don't do that, do they? Because of course the church is innocent. That's what you don't do. If you're innocent, you try to cheat and destroy the life of the person coming after you. But and so, how did this happen in the Mormon Church? That they could have the Book of Mormon, they could express their emotions to the point of tears and joy about how exciting it is to have such a book and have living prophets and blah blah blah, and be completely clueless as of what's in the Book of Mormon and how to use it. It's just mind-boggling, to say the least. But like I said, for me, I would read the Book of Mormon. It says, oh, it's from Egyptian. We have the Book of Abraham, Egyptian. So what do I get into? Studying Egyptian as well, at the University of Utah. Anthropology of the Middle Eastern cultures, specifically, because nobody teaches what I want to have taught to me. So I have to pursue my own research, and I then become the master of the subject matter. And so I was focused on translation, and that's why the church is so furious with me, and why they have been hunting me since I moved to Utah, and why I'm forced to file a lawsuit, which is the evidence against them, is that they're blatant about it. They aren't covering it up at all, and they were caught paying the person that had me disappeared. So when you look back at Mormon history, Mormons talk about Joseph Smith, they talk about him being murdered, they blame the mob, and it's just the mob. They don't explain who the mob was and what their association was with the church. And that's a key feature there that nobody thinks to ever search for that answer. It was the Warsaw Lodge, which was Scottish rites, as I was again corrected on that, because I assumed it was a York rites, because the Smiths were York rites back before the Book of Mormon. And so I just assumed that they call him the Grand Master on Wikipedia, I think. And as I've been doing church history, I needed to go into the history of Freemasonry as well, and then realized there are two main branches, and I had to then go into both, and it was Scottish rites, not York rites. And so there were some interesting violations, which I think were allowed simply because of the 1826 anti-Mason movement, which again is part of church history, which is not discussed by the Mormon Church. Their New Saints books, they ain't touching that subject, because Joseph Smith Sr. was a Master Mason at the city or the township where William Morgan was arrested and then disappeared from. And if you understand Masonry, you understand that the Master Mason is the one in charge of that township. Everything goes through him. It's like the bishop. He's in charge of the ward boundaries, stake president, stake boundaries, etc. In Freemasonry, the Master Mason is in charge of everything that goes on in the town. and he helped William Morgan flee the country because his life was in danger, and thus became responsible for the anti-Mason movement. And if you understand that the anti-Mason movement was a response to William Morgan's trying to warn America through the York Rites, well, anyway, I'm straying from the topic that I wanted to do here. But, and so when Joseph Smith was murdered, the church just fractured. Everybody went their own way. I mean, Sidney Rigdon and Brigham Young duked it out in a conference session, but nobody followed the succession commandments in what's now section 107, 21, and 22. Let me double check myself. There's so many, I get them mixed up. Let's see. Doctrine and Covenants, section 107. 21. Yep, I was right. Section 107, 21, and 22. And this explains to Mormons why they're so confused when in general conferences we all raise our hand for a sustaining vote. No, this is a loyalty oath, Mormons. This is not a sustaining vote. This is a loyalty oath. And that's what criminal organizations do. And they're doing it in public. That's how brazen they are. As the world can watch us give loyalty to the prophets over America. And so that was disturbing when I realized church history, and then this now fit into its proper perspective. Because what's supposed to happen is the Adam-on-Diamond meeting for this, second coming. Remember, Mormons? Where the priesthood is gathered and they give the keys to Jesus Christ? Really? Does he really need the keys? He has them. He's God. So we've been a little deceived there. But the real story explains it all, and I'm not going to get into the real story on this one. I'm just going to tease you on that. But yeah, that's of the Melchizedek priesthood, the presiding high priests, which is the first presidency, are chosen by the body. Do you know what chosen means? Voted. That's where the sustaining vote comes from. We're just not voting like we're supposed to. But here comes the sustaining part. Appointed and ordained to that office and upheld by the confidence, faith, and prayer of the church. See, the Melchizedek priesthood as a whole, including elders, 70, and others that are supposed to be in existence but are no longer in existence, they're all supposed to gather and vote for who is to be the president and his counselors. Yeah, they vote for the counselors. Just like in the Constitution, we were supposed to vote for president, and the second place runner-up becomes vice president. Yeah, we're not doing that, are we? And so then after the Melchizedek priesthood votes for who's supposed to be the leadership, then they're presented at a conference where the members then uphold them. And it's just by confidence, faith, and prayer. So in other words, they're just announced that the Melchizedek priesthood has done this. You can see that in stake presidents, or stake conferences, for example. The stake president will have announced those who have become Melchizedek priesthood holders or advance in rank, and they just announce it that it was done and it was voted sustained by the Melchizedek priesthood, and the rest of the stake is made aware of it. So we aren't following the scriptures. We aren't following our own doctrine and principles and administration guidelines. And Mormons will just say, well, it's continuous revelation. You have to follow it in the first place before you change things. Because you have to know what's wrong before you change it. If you don't know what's wrong, and you don't even bother to find out, why are you changing it? If it's not Baroque, don't fix it. Beauty and the Beast, Cogsworth. And so Brigham Young then kidnaps Mormons along with his loyal followers from the Danites, who were the Scottish Rites Freemasons before as the anti-Mason movement occurred, and because the Scottish Rites were pissed. And to find out that it was a York Rites group that secreted him away, and they found out who it was, as I found out Heber C. Kimball found out, with his little clues from his journal history. Oh man, that's just scary. So I did that video. That's just one video, Heber C. Kimball, not too long ago. But my goodness. But yeah, Brigham Young purposely separated his followers from everything in the United States, hoping to isolate themselves and rebuild. That's where he created his Kingdom of Deseret, Kingdom Mormons, where he became king. You know, they talk about him being governor. That was 2 years later when the United States came in and said, hey, this is now our territory, and you will now be a governor, and we're going to watch out for you. And sure enough, they had to dethrone him as governor too, because he kept kicking out the judges because he was upset that they were putting in non-Mormon judges. But yeah, there was not much in the realm of following the Book of Mormon, because he instituted polygamy in 1852. Polygamy is denounced 3 times in the Book of Mormon. And so again, Mormons, if you believe in the Book of Mormon, you believe that the precepts will draw you nearer to God than by any other book, and thus any other voice. It's denounced 3 times. So anybody who starts polygamy in the church are false prophets. It's that simple. Either the Book of Mormon is the keystone of the religion, and thus the official doctrine of the church, or it is not, and then whoever the living prophet is trumps the Book of Mormon. Again, you're supposed to figure out so that you can uphold by the confidence, faith, and prayer of whoever is voted for. And it's just not done. And so you can see why I'm a critic, but you can see also that the church the organization, I can't really call it a church. It was only a church because Sidney Rigdon made deals in order to get paid for plagiarizing the Book of Mormon. You don't think he did it for free, did you? He wanted a bigger audience than his Kirtland congregation, and he saw this as an opportunity to increase his membership to listen to his sermons. And because of his head injury as a younger man, he was unable to formulate his own work. But he loved to read and had collected lots of books. Yes, that's why he was in Pittsburgh and came across Solomon Spaulding's manuscript. It wasn't for the purpose of rewriting it. He just loved to have books in his collection, and he would use stuff from those books in his sermons. And that's why the computer program identified him as the author of a founding father documents. I can't remember the name of them, but that's the criticism in Wikipedia about the computer program by the church, is that, well, they say he's the author of these manuscripts. Obviously he wasn't. It's because he plagiarized them. and anyway, so I mean, Sidney Rigdon is fascinating. And when you understand what he did based on his limitations, his disability, just a remarkable man. And he didn't want to be the president of the church. He just wanted to oversee it, because he just wanted to have a church to continue to preach his sermons. He wasn't interested in forming a city of Zion and all that. He was helping Joseph for the purpose of he gets to continue to preach. Yeah, fascinating man. But Mormons don't believe he was the legitimate successor of after Joseph died, because all Mormons, being born and raised in the church, all believe, oh, well, Brigham Young, obviously, because he's the one I'm in. The logic is just dumb. It's all fallacy. And Mormons can't understand the concept of what sound versus unsound reasoning is. We have the scripture in the Doctrine and Covenants. Come, let us reason together. You know, that's the Lord talking to Joseph Smith. And Mormons just don't understand what actual sound reason is. And they call it Bible bashing and therefore contention, and so they just throw out reason completely. And they say, you can't judge us, we need to believe whatever we want to believe, and we're not going to pursue the truth regardless of what the truth is. And yeah, it's ridiculous. And so Brigham Young kept the Book of Mormon away from the people, and is even reinterpreting the Book of Mormon, because he didn't understand that the Book of Mormon was coded so that when it talks about the Lamanites becoming black as flint and cursing on the Lamanites, he then took it as white supremacist racial hatred towards blacks and Indians, and justified his atrocities and taking away the priesthood from blacks. Is because of his refusal. Well, I'm still trying to find, I guess it would be, because Heber C. Kimball knew that Joseph Smith Sr. was behind the anti-Mason movement. So yeah, they knew the coding. And they purposely miseducated the Mormons to follow their new interpretation of the Book of Mormon. And yeah, that's why Mormons are so dumb, literally dumb, is because they've been miseducated, starting with Brigham Young, and taking them away from the coded message warning that's in there. Because Mormons know the Kingmen. What did the Kingmen do? They were the cause of the destruction of the Nephites. Kingmen. Mosiah, chapter 29. King Mosiah gives up the throne, saying, my son, my birthright blessing son, does not want to be the successor, and if I have one of my other sons be the successor, the birthright blessing son may come back one day and say, hey, no, I'm the true successor, step aside, and there will be wars and contentions. And so he says, and so I'm doing away with a monarchy, and we're now going to have the rule of the judges, the reign of the judges, and has a constitution called the Laws of Mosiah. Constitution, judges, and does away with a monarchy and talks about King Noah as the bad example for kings. And so then the Kingmen, Captain Moroni, title of liberty, He's not just battling the Lamanites, he's also having to deal with infighting at home among the Nephites, as Pehoran is trying to restore order with the kingmen trying to rise up and overthrow the government to establish a monarchy. And so then Moroni has to then go back to his capital city and conquer the kingmen before going back out to fight the Lamanites. And Mormons all get upset by the war stories. Oh, the war stories. Ah, man, why does it have to be so much blood and fighting? There's a reason. It's coded. It's plagiarized, but it's coded. And it's a warning to us. Because who is it written for? Jews, Gentiles, Lamanites. What is it telling us? Oh, well, Jesus is real. No! Jesus is coded for the last days. And so, yeah, the obvious is staring Mormons right in the face. And they just miss it. They don't know how to liken the scriptures unto themselves. And that's in the Book of Mormon, too. It's a commandment in the Book of Mormon. And so as the church goes through their punishments from the United States, which they call persecution of the mean, evil United States that we need to rebel against and fight against and conquer so that we can establish our kingdom of Deseret. That's how it changed. Joseph Smith wanted to build the cities of Zion and New Jerusalem, and Brigham Young took it into, I need to establish a kingdom of my own. Just, man, that's why I wanted to do the Brigham Young monster, what was it again? Nope, that's not it. Brigham Young, The Rise of a Monster. I've just got a dump pile that I toss my post-it notes on. This is getting bigger and bigger as I can't keep up. Originally they were intended to be book publications, but now that I'm able to do videos, it's so much easier and quicker to do videos of them. But I'm still way behind. I need something faster. And but yeah, Lorenzo Snow, Mormons know him. Oh, he established tithing because the Mormons were wicked and not paying their tithing. Again, Mormons are being deceived as to the church history. The Edmunds Tucker Act disincorporated the church. It no longer existed as an organization. And that's sort of left out of history, as the church says, we were persecuted for our religious beliefs of polygamy. But now they can't say any such thing. Oh no, that's old school. We follow the current prophet now. They don't get it. They don't understand farming anymore. When you have a dead tree, you're not going to get good fruit from it. It's that simple. Jesus says it in the Gospels, under false prophets, Matthew chapter 7. And it's just unbelievable. But that's what I'm concerned with now. We're in a Great Depression. And it's coming. It's technically a recession, but we're going to experience Great Recession experiences. And it's going to be far more damaging because of the technologies that we have and rely upon. Just the computer technologies alone. We lose those. What do we do? Oh, I don't know. I've heard about something called books. We have e-books, but I don't know how did they have books? What do we use? I've got some chalk. We can write on sidewalks. We'll create tablets. So yeah, it seems like it's funny, and we joke to millennials about it as old folks that in my day we used to have 8-track tapes and records. And see, now everything's digital streaming. But yeah, we lose all that. People are going to have to redesign their whole lives. Start from scratch. Go back to the Stone Age, literally. And from such a high technological advancement to fall to the Stone Age instantly, relatively speaking, I don't think America can survive that. I don't think they know how to survive that. You know, when you can't rely on the grocery store for food, you have to figure out another food source. I don't think people know how to do that. Like I said, Mormons don't even know how to farm because they don't understand the symbolic meaning when the scriptures talk about farming situations. I mean, I have to now say faith without fruit is dead, because Mormons don't get it if I just quote James, faith without works is dead. Mormons don't understand. They think, oh yeah, I'm doing good works. I'm telling the gospel to my neighbors and being active in my calling at church. No, that's not how it works. They just don't understand. And it's frustrating as a Mormon trying to teach Mormons about Mormonism. That's why I have the Corrected Mormonism playlist also. It's because I'm trying to do that on this newer site that I have. I have the old site where you can see the evolution, because I at first am doing all sorts of my research as I'm trying to get back into it, being freed after 6 years of being locked up by the church because I'm a translator, and then I start getting into doctrinal and philosophical stuff, and then you can see the change when I post the Book of Mormon is the official doctrine of the church concerning the fall of Adam, and all hell breaks loose. And I start becoming an LDS critic because I'm posting what I'm discovering as I find more and more research. And then, of course, YouTube Mormon employees are out to get me then, as they block my views and block my videos from people seeing them, and they are very nitpicky, and Mormons are complaining, and yeah, all hell broke loose. And so I'm not allowed to touch that site anymore. Even though the videos are still there, I just can't access the management functions. And so I can delete people who post abusive comments, which I still do to this day, as more people are coming to my signs video that I did. But yeah, it's just amazing how people just don't see it. But that's why. And so when Mormons focus on Moroni chapter 10 verses 3 through 5, their minds delete the word manifest. They reinterpret it or redefine it, I guess, or they just leave it out altogether. That's what they do with R-rated movies. They think it's a commandment. We can't watch any R-rated movies. Wrong. And like I did in my video yesterday, there's no period after that statement. It continues. The sentence continues. Now, guys, you did study English grammar, right? In school? You know, there's the word that. And so the sentence is still going. But all Mormons put a period after don't watch R-rated movies. And so now Mormons think they can't watch R-rated movies. And Rick's College would have their little theater where they'd show movies, but they'd edit the movies to bleep out the swear words or the good sex scenes, the nudity scenes, and they usually didn't get those kinds of videos anyway, but it's the PG-13s that they even modified, because that's too extreme for Mormons, and we're going to be the protection of Mormon virtue and innocence. But yeah, don't they have to watch it though? Don't they hear it in order to edit it out? So yeah, thus came the scam here in Utah of the DVD player that would edit the movies, and Hollywood got upset about this when they found out about it and sued, and the case was in court and they lost, but they still were functioning as a business doing other stuff, I guess. But then two little teen girls came to the store once, and the guy gave each of them $10 for a certain thing called BJ. And the girls went home and told their mothers. That's Mormons for you. Hey Mom, I'm feeling guilty, so I'm confessing my sins. And so, forgive me, so I can then continue on happy. When I grew up in the 80s, we had the sexist stereotype of the dumb blonde. It just caught fire. Everybody was telling blonde jokes. And they had the songs, I'm a blonde, yeah, 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 because I'm a blonde, yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome songs, but I can never tell the jokes very well. I was never good at joke telling, so when I get a joke, it's mine. Don't take it from me, please. But yeah, all of the different blonde jokes emerged during that period, and blondes were purposely trying to be blonde, the ignorant, innocent girl. And then came the women's liberation movement into that whole concept, and turned women to pretend to be blondes, but are actually really smart and intelligent girls, like superheroes. The blonde was just their alter ego to fool men. That was the 90s. And then so yeah, in the Mormon church, with that transition from dumb blonde into superhero blonde, came women wanting to wear the pants in the family. And so, oh yeah, we let the men think that they are presiding, but we all know the women run the household. And so, again, no, I keep telling this to people with my government stuff. We don't want to overthrow somebody so that we can have other oppressors oppressing people. That's not the whole point. It's not who can oppress who and conquer the other to dominate as oppressors. No. And so it's really disturbing when I hear women, cheer when they talk about, we're going to have a woman as president and we're going to rule. Or when they push for equality in the workplace. Well, no, you're not. You're pushing for dominance in the workplace. Because how do you get to be equal? By replacing men. And yes, it's wrong that men are oppressive in their positions, but it's not right to remove one oppressor with another. It's the same in the church. It's not supposed to be women presiding either. Section 121 makes it very clear. No unrighteousness in leadership. None. You're supposed to be good. And if you were good, if men were good, women wouldn't need to demand equality and demand dominance. But what a mess. So yeah, 45-minute video now and 3:30. Alrighty, I'll stop. And the other project I did on the other computer is still running. Alrighty, so yeah, 30 minutes until I may not get to posting this until after my run.